let's dive into the main event of the evening between Islam Makhachev and Jack Della Maddalena. Now we've got Islam sitting at -250 on the comeback here. We've got Jack Della Maddalena sitting at +210. Now this is an absolute super fight here. You've got, the lightweight champion versus the welterweight champion. Although he, dropped the belt, everyone looks at this as a super fight. Absolutely. You've got the elite level wrestling of Makhachev versus the high level boxing and striking of Jack Della Maddalena. Now, it's really pretty much going to be who gets their game off, right? Is it going to be the wrestling? Is it going to be the striking of Jack? Now, the moving up of Islam is definitely a variable here, is something that's going to be very tough to kind of quantify. It's very tough to kind of how is it going to impact the fight? That's going to be a big part of this. Is it going to impact his cardio? Is it going to impact, him really pushing the pace? Is it, is Jack going to have this large, size advantage over him? And honestly, I don't really think it's going to affect any of that. Whoever wins or loses here, I don't think it's going to be because Makhachev went up. I think it's just the style worked for him. But I think that overall, I don't think the cardio is going to really cost anything to Islam. I don't think that it's really going to be taxing on his body. I don't think there's going to be any issue there. Plus, I think the size, I don't think there's going to be a size advantage. Islam has squeezed down to the lightweight division for many years. He really walks around massive. So I don't think there's going to be really any issue with that overall. No negative, effects, I think, overall. But I think the big red flag here on the Jack Della Maddalena side is going to be the fact he can be taken down. Right now, this is a guy that I have bet. I 5% bet him against Gilbert Burns in a fight where we cashed there. It was a great, great spot. So I've definitely been following and really researching both these guys for quite some time. But the issue here again is just he can be taken down. He's got great scrambling ability. He can get back to his feet. There are some things that he can do overall, but over Jack's last 4 fights, he's been taken down 13 times against much lesser wrestlers. And I think that's very concerning if you're looking for that plus money on the JDM side. And the guys that took him down, guys like Basel Hafez, who's Basel Hafez? Not a very good fighter overall, but was very scrappy, pushed an absolutely crazy wrestling pace. And that really forced Jack to kind of, slow down his offense, smothered him, kind of overwhelmed him in certain spots. Yes, he was able to light him up on the feet, but still the wrestling caused him problems, even against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert is a guy who elite level jiu-jitsu, but not the greatest wrestler. And even there, he found success getting JDM down, finding a little bit of control time. Certain mistakes that he was making, but still Gilbert at the end of his career, a guy that, was pretty much a journeyman fighter at that particular point. And even Jack went out there, he beat, Bilal Muhammad. And even in that fight where he beat Bilal, Bilal fought to one of the worst, strategy game plans, you can call it, ever, for a guy that has, great cardio, great wrestling, isn't dangerous, but can just wet blanket you. He decided to, hear the chirps in his ears where he was kind of a boring fighter and decided to say, hey, I'm going to make it exciting. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to box. And that allowed Jack to get into the fight. Now, I bet Jack had plus money there. It was a nice spot to cash, but it was also a very stupid game plan for the current champion at that time, and Bilal Muhammad. He just didn't fight smart, and that's not going to be Islam. Islam's not going to all of a sudden say, hey, let's figure out who's the better boxer. No, Islam's going to really fight to his strength, and that's wrestling, and that's being repetitive with it, and that's getting control time, and that's really where Jack does struggle. And the gap in wrestling is massively wide compared to the gap in between their striking. Now, I think the striking is much closer than I think a lot of people are going to think here. Yes, Jack does have some of the best boxing in the division, but overall, we've seen, Islam consistently get better, consistently, time after time, his striking's looking smoother. He's mixing in the takedowns. And that, I think, is really where it's going to allow him to open up on the striking, because I think that Islam can move forward. The threat of the takedowns will be there. And that even was pretty much what happened against Bilal, where, Bilal, the threat of the takedown allowed, him to get off boxing, and the striking was there. There was competitive moments on the feet. And once even, Bilal started to say, hey, let me start shooting for takedowns, it was too little too late. At that point, he'd been beaten up. He didn't have the energy to really push that kind of wrestling anymore. And it allowed Jack to win. And that was just, again, stupid for Bilal, great for Jack, but stupid for him in that spot here. And I do think this is a spot here, where Islam is going to bank rounds. I think that the scrambling ability of JDM is going to really, he's going to get up. Islam's going to push. He's going to cage push. He's going to find some control time. There's going to be competitive moments on the feet. Islam's going to get him back down. I think that's kind of like a rinse and repeat kind of situation that pushes this fight to the scorecard. So I think this is a spot here where Islam can win positionally over the 5 rounds. So getting off the -250 number here, I do like Islam by points plus 210. I think it's a great spot here, and I love that plus money.